Welcome to Clicks and Coffee. I'm Alexander, and here we dive deep into the journeys of entrepreneurs and marketing innovators. Each episode, we uncover the challenges, triumphs, and unique strategies of our amazing guests, giving you valuable insights and inspiration. Our goal is to build a community of growth oriented professionals ready to learn, collaborate, and thrive in the ever evolving world of digital marketing. So, whether you're here for the latest trends or looking for that next big idea, you've come to the right place. Let's get started. And today we have Philippe Noël. He's the co-founder and CEO of ParadeDB, which is, according to the website, a modern Elasticsearch alternative built on Postgres. In English, it is a new backend system to help any companies using the Postgres database system to simplify, enhance, and speed up its use. Philippe, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be a part of it.
All right. So now that we, talk about, did a little introduction of your company, you have actually a very interesting background, even though you're starting, but you already done a lot of things. So can you tell us a little bit about like your background and how did you got where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, I was born and raised in Quebec, the French part of Canada. I lived there for most of my life. I ended up going to university in the US. I studied computer science and neuroscience at Harvard. Towards the end of my university, I started a company with a friend. We were building a cybersecurity enhanced browser. We did that for a few years, just about 3 years. Grew the company to quite a sizable size, um, up to 25 people working at the company at some point. We eventually sunsetted down, and then took a few months off and started Parade last year. It basically grew from our frustration operating both Elasticsearch, one of the tool we replaced, and Postgres together. Um, a lot of people in the software world are very familiar with Elasticsearch, and they don't like it for a variety of reasons. A lot of people are familiar with Postgres and they love it for also a whole sort of reason, and we're kind of trying to bridge the gap.
And so how did you, what was the what was the day, the light bulb of doing that? Because and I know you're in the computer science and software and backend development, but that seems to be uh why didn't other people? Because from my research, Postgres is like the third most used database, which is a pretty
Second, probably.
sizable, a second now. And
Yeah.
so, what was the light bulb and why nobody else has thought about it before?
Yeah, that's a great question. The truth is, there's been a few attempts at doing something somewhat similar to what we were doing before, but not quite in the same way. Even though Postgres is a very popular system and it's been around for over 30 years by now, its primary use case is not what we are making it do today by replacing Elasticsearch. They're kind of two different components of building a software application, but it's grown in popularity over the years. Its feature set and what it can be used for has grown as well as the community has continued to develop it. And so it's not until actually very recently that it's become possible to build a feature set that Elasticsearch offers inside Postgres directly. When we started, we yeah, anyways, it wasn't possible. And so for individuals and developers were forced to use both, right? There was just no option. Um, as it became more and more possible, we started talking to people and the frustration grew. It's kind of in a way, if you look at, if something is impossible to do, people are not thinking about doing it. But as it starts to be possible, you have a few, sort of savvy people that starts to be more and more frustrated because they realize they're very close to being able to accomplish what they want with the tool that they already have. And that's what over time got us, gave us the idea. And yeah, we were frankly the first one to do it in the way that we did, and it's been quite well received by the industry by now.
That's pretty exciting. And I know we were supposed to do the recording a couple weeks ago, and you had a big pitch, I would say, which is pretty exciting. So, what are the type of clients that now are interested by this type of new company or this type of really feature? I'm looking at your website and I saw that you have companies like the Chicago Blackhawks and Alibaba.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with these companies. They're pretty large. Um,
A little bit.
yeah, yeah, so
Alibaba is, yeah, it's kind of like a big deal. So I'm like,
yeah,
you
they're a bit.
you started this company when, like 2 years ago?
No, it's been about a year. Yeah,
A
we
year
started
ago, and you're
around.
already working with Alibaba.
Yeah, that was a surprise to us as well. Frankly, they reached out. We we support a lot of people in the e-commerce world. So e-commerce has been one example of an industry that has benefited a lot from our service. So what we do is, in more concrete terms, is we enable companies to build search experiences for their website. So you go on Amazon and you search for a specific product, right? Then you can put it in your shopping cart and purchase it. That whole experience of searching for available products and then purchasing them, that requires a search database, and Elastic is the world's most famous search database. However, and Postgres, on the contrary, is not a search database. It's a system of record database. So you might, for example, store your inventory, like which products you sell and what quantity you have and what the price is and whether there's a discount in a system of record like Postgres. But in order to build the searchable experience for your end users, you would need to transfer that data over to Elastic. And so your application would be built on top of both. The
I
whole
see.
process of transferring the data, it can be slow, it can be error prone, it causes a lot of issues because they're two different systems, so there's compatibility issues. What we do is we enable people to have that searchable database experience directly in Postgres. So they only have to use one database. Companies in the e-commerce world like Alibaba, the Chicago Blackhawks, for example, selling tickets or merch and so on. They're great examples of companies that face this type of problem. And today are required to utilize both type of data systems, but they would prefer to just use one. So that's one. That's why they're on our website. We also work with companies in the fintech, financial technology sector as well, who have similar situation, companies in the software observability, companies in the sales automation, outbound sales, marketing, compliance type of workloads as well. Anywhere you have large amounts of data that's changing rapidly and needs to be searchable by your customer, um, a product like ParadeDB is a very good choice.
Because it's much faster and just, yeah, much faster and more robust and
Yeah,
simple.
yeah, it's simple. It's faster. You don't need to send data, so all of that can cause a lot of issues. It causes lack of data freshness. So for a lot of our customers, the updates to their inventory, for example, might not be reflected in real time. So I've talked to many people in the e-commerce world where because they need to send data from Postgres to Elastic, what the user actually searches is not the exact state of their warehouse or their inventory. It can lag behind by a few hours, right? So as you might imagine, that can cause great customer frustration. Sometimes what they will do is they will say, hey, like we'll be conservative and um, you know, if we think a product will run out, we'll just preemptively mark it as ran out. But then some customers always see products that are never available and they get frustrated by that experience. On the contrary, there's customers that might be wanting to purchase something, but it's not available, right? That's a very frustrating experience as well. So that lag is a really big problem, not to add to complexity that might come from operating the system, increased cost, increased management from the employees that are working in the company, so on and so forth.
And so, but so that's all. When you say for the search for the e-commerce, that could also be the search on the website itself of like looking
Correct.
for a product. So do you know a company called Search Spring?
I've heard of SearchSpring before. There's quite a few companies in the search world.
And so your company would also be I would say, a backend system for software that want to build search engine for e-commerce, for example. Because Search Spring, the idea is that it's not just a search engine on your website, it also allows you to get insights on who is using search, what are they searching for, what are the most search items, and then also what is the revenue. So when somebody's using search and then start navigating, it kind of follows the journey of the user and allows you to put a dollar amount on the
Hmm.
search and then tell you, okay, you need to improve this, or maybe you should put this more prominently on your website because the search was searched this amount and generated this amount of money, which I thought it was
Hmm.
pretty cool.
Yeah, that is super cool. There's a lot of companies that operate in this. The the difference I would say with Parade is we don't focus specifically on e-commerce, but we do focus on integrating deeply with Postgres. So all of these tools, they don't have they can't claim to be reducing that data movement situation that I described because they're different from Postgres. Very similar to the current situation with Elastic, as I said, which is kind of the main one. If a company is using Postgres today and they're looking for search, ParadeDB is going to be the most responsive and simplest solution for them.
Cool. And then so for now, it's more enterprise level clients that you're getting, correct?
Correct. Well, we're an open source product, so most of the code is available online. It can be read and followed. We're fortunate to have gained quite a large following in the open source. So what this means is anyone can go and use it, and you can use it for free as well. So we have over 50,000 deployments of the database, hundreds of small companies that use it for free every day. But as far as what I would call official customers that pay us to offer certain features or to operate the services on their behalf, we tend to focus towards larger customers.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty impressive in just 1 year. And so, you know, the point of this podcast is entrepreneurship and, amazing stories like yours, but also is to try to understand, the building the product is one thing, but the other thing is like, how do you get people to know about your product, and how did you manage in just 1 year to get this customer? Is it because in your mind, like, you build such an amazing product that like people they see on GitHub, right, that you have
Correct.
so, and then people just be like, oh my God, ParadeDB is like completely changing the world of search, and everybody has to, it's kind of like a eureka moment for everybody. Or you're working hard at that, you created a great product, but at the same time, it's taking a lot of efforts on your side, or maybe your other co-founder, to, get in front of people and then show what you can do.
It's definitely the latter. So we have invested a lot of effort, especially in being intentional about how we market the product. But I do believe we're building a good product. People seem to like it, and so it helps a lot. And we are fortunate that because it's open source, developers will see it, they'll recommend it to others. And so every day we get suggested on Twitter and Reddit and wherever people may hang out by people we don't know, right? Individual users who are like, hey, have you heard of ParadeDB? It's a nice product. So we get some of that word of mouth because of the product quality, I believe. But to get started, especially in the beginning, it was all through content marketing for us specifically. So
It was what?
we
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
content marketing, so writing
Content
blog
marketing.
posts and
Okay.
art.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the main one for us. We did two things primarily. We wrote about what we did simply. So we would write about how the technology is built, why we're building that technology, who it's for, and so on. And we're fortunate to be working on pretty interesting technology. And so when we write about it in a detailed way, oftentimes developers find it quite interesting. And then we're not really actively advertising the product. We're more just discussing the technology that we work on, and it achieves the effect of advertising the product because after someone reads a detailed overview of the specific search in Postgres, they're like, wow, this is cool. Who are the people making this, right? And then they kind of check us out. We have taken an interesting approach to it, which is we write very little. So in our first year, we've only written 6 blog posts and really only 5. Um, and each of them we invest a sizable amount of time into it, like a few days. And we only write when we have things that we feel are novel or really interesting to say. And so as a result, every single but one of our blog posts has gone trending and has gotten like significant amount of interest from people. It's sort of a quality over quantity amount that we've taken, and
I was
we
about
found
to
that
say
to
that.
be yeah, we found that to be, it's actually an advice we got from some of our investors, right? And we found that to be very effective. There's so much noise online. Everyone is shouting for what they're making. If you want to rise up, you kind of have to make something really high quality, and it's better to do that once in a while, but really strike people, with make them pay attention rather than sort of constantly bombard them with something that might not be really catching their attention.
And so for you, the idea, so the idea basically of your concept was to do something more personal, of instead of saying like, ParadeDB is a company and this is what we do and blah, 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 it's more about like, hey, it's Philippe and I want to share my story with you. This is what we're working on. We're super excited. And so make it more personal, making more like a personal story so people can get, can see through your eyes basically and follow everything you're doing.
We have both. We have both. So from our blog posts are made for the perspective of the company, but they're not directly advertising the company. So for example, we wrote our first ever blog post. We wrote about why search in Postgres is limited, why it's limited and how it can be better. And then we wrote about why how we made it better, right? We never really said, this is ParadeDB, come buy our product. We just said, this is the state of the technology and here are its limitations and here are improvements. And people were like, wow, this is really cool. And they look us up and like, oh, we're actually implementing this as a product. We're going to follow along. So that is completely non-personal, but I would say it's also not company pushing. We're not forcing the company brand in front of people. On the other side, I write a lot on Twitter and LinkedIn and so on about just my personal journey building the product. We also, my co-founder and I built another company before, and we wrote a lot about our experience building a startup. I had written a blog post that went quite viral as well back in the day, on my first startup, and so I kind of have this other storyline of like, hey, this is my experience building this, and we get interest from users from both sides, like people that follow the entrepreneurial journey and people that follow sort of the technological journey of the product.
No, that's super exciting. And so you said that you already had a startup, but you had to winding down. What was the
Correct.
what happened? Because it seemed that it was a pretty interesting product as well.
Yeah, we were building a browser in the cybersecurity space. The idea was to just offer higher gar security guarantees to specifically to companies for their employees' work browser. We raised a couple rounds of funding. We raised a decent amount of money, grew quite a big team, and it was interesting technology. But the truth is, we were new to the startup world. We made many mistakes. I take the blame for making them, and we were a bit slow, I think, to navigate the market. So by the time that we reached a product that was really valuable and that customers were really excited about, there were other startups that were doing very successfully at selling those customers, and we were quite behind in the industry. And we decided that rather than sort of play catch up, right, and try to run behind the people running faster forever, we would just, take our learnings, close the company down, and do it again in another industry where we can be the market leader. And that's what we've done with Parade. And now I'm very happy to say, even though we're young and early, I do believe we're the market leader in the search and Postgres market, and it's pretty narrow niche, but it's quite sizable, and we have a lot of ideas for expanding outside
And
of that.
probably very sticky because once people set up the whole system, it's like, okay, we have a much better system, let's switch. But then you don't really change, or it's going to take a long time before people start changing.
Correct, correct. The database market is particularly sticky. That's one of the reason investors are oftentimes very excited about it. The downside of this is customers are aware that it's going to be difficult for them to change, and so they're also slower in adopting products. They want to make sure that they really understand what's going on. They're really happy with the choice they're making because they know they're making a choice for the long term. But yes, we're fortunate that customers are quite sticky.
And then, you proved yourself on the first go, at least on the product building side. And were you able to raise the money from the same investors, or you got new investors, or how did that new company got funded?
Good question. We did both. We raised some money from old investors and some money from new investors. We're very fortunate when we closed the first company. We spent a lot of time reflecting on what happened. I spent about 2 weeks writing down all of the lessons that I took from the first experience, things we did really well, things we perhaps didn't do so well, and we shared that to our investors to ask for their opinion. And to my great surprise, I thought our investors would be very, very upset that we closed the company down and didn't end up making them a lot of money. But people were very excited about the learnings, and every single one of them, except one, expressed interest in funding us again. Now,
Oh,
when we did the second company and we did the second fundraise for the company, some of them we were able to accommodate, some of them we weren't. There were a lot of interest from new investors as well. So it's kind of a mix. But we're fortunate to have, especially the investors we like most in the first company, be part of the second one.
and a lot of the time when we talk about startups, we know Silicon Valley. We
Hmm.
have a little bit in Miami as well with Techstars, and I know especially in the crypto side of things as well. So why New York?
Good question. The first thing I would say is there's a lot of startups in New York. There's a lot more than people think. But so I went to university in Boston. That's where I met my co-founder as well. When we started our first company, we hired a couple of our smartest friends from Harvard, and many of them had jobs lined up working in finance, especially in quantitative finance type roles. They had already decided they were going to be New York based after university, and they quit those jobs to join our company. And when we had the discussion of figuring out, okay, we're graduating university, it's time to move somewhere, everyone wanted to move to New York. And so we just decided to do that. We built the first company in New York. We had a good experience. We were very fortunate that, investors are very present. There's a lot of other startups. And so we decided to kind of stick with that in the second one. But we spent a few months in San Francisco actually, and I do travel to San Francisco quite often.
Okay, so yeah, okay, that's interesting because we all hear about Silicon Valley, at least California, but less
Yeah.
about New York and Miami. And I know that there are a lot of companies, starting in those two cities.
Yeah, New York, in my opinion, well, not just in my opinion, I'm pretty sure that's research now, is the fastest growing startup hub in the US. And
Oh,
there are less startups than in San Francisco for sure, in the Silicon Valley, but there are very many. There are very, very many. And all the major investors travel to New York and they ask to meet with me. Many of them are opening up offices in New York as well. I'm a big believer that New York will be the next big startup city, and it already is in a lot of ways.
no, it's exciting. So, it's pretty exciting to see, I would say, almost the hockey stick growth of ParadeDB. That's really exciting. And like a couple of podcasts that I've done in the past with similar, I would say, stage company that you are in. It's a lot of sweat, a lot of
Mhm.
hustle to get in front of people, to talk, to always be present. How do you see your future on the marketing side in a couple of years when, let's say that, you have 100, 200 employees and it's kind of becoming a medium-sized business is starting to get established and everything because your investors, they're not investing for fun. They're investing for growth. So how do you anticipate, yeah, the sales of ParadeDB once you grow to decent size?
Yeah, that's a good question. So today, our sales is mostly from inbound, right? We do some content and we build a good product and we talk about it online and people come and I'll talk to them. We make sure to help them be successful and walk them through the process of implementing. As we grow, a lot of this will move, in my opinion, from writing content to engaging with customers directly wherever they are, right? Participating in industry events, speaking at conferences, meeting large enterprises on site, so on and so forth. I do believe that is probably what the role will end up transforming into for me. Um, my I think the founder's number one and number two jobs is customer support and sales, right? I try to be as customer facing as possible, and the larger we grow, the larger the enterprises that we will service, and the more we'll need to be present in person. So it's probably what it will be. But I do think some amount of it will never change much, which is taking meetings with people that are interested and making sure that they know we care about their business. One of the greatest assets, I think, of the founder is when you're the person that's on the call, it shows to the potential client that they're a priority, right? Even when you're 200 people, if I give you, the most recent person that joined junior on my team, it conveys a message. It says, hey, you're worth, that person that doesn't know as well. But when you give them the founder, they know like this is the person whose time, is the most in demand, and they know they're a priority. So I plan to continue to take as many of those customer meetings as I possibly can.
Wow. Okay. So it's going to be really, so the way that you see the growth of ParadeDB is keep doing a good product that, kind of sells by itself. And then it's really going to keep working on awareness of the brand and aura. So by, being there, uh, personally, I would say, and then keep doing it. But it looks to me like the product is just going to keep selling itself just by the fact, but it makes sense. It's a product that makes sense. If you really work in the database business, your product may just make sense. So it's going to help a lot.
Yeah, I do think it helps a lot when people see it. It's very rare that we need to convince customers that they need it. They're pretty quickly to realize they need it. The main question nowadays is just, is it ready, right? Because we're a new company, and so having some of these big brands helps customers feel like the product is ready. I do think we are being a bit more intentional than the product just selling itself. Selling software is very difficult actually. It requires a lot of effort to implement and so on. And so we are intentional about how to go about it. But in the software infrastructure world, community and marketing is a bit more important in a lot of ways than direct sales, I think, right? Um, we don't do so much cold outbound. We just try to make sure people know about it, know when to use it, and as soon as they start looking at the product and wondering, we make sure to proactively reach out and say, hey, we're here to help if you need. Um, that's what we've learned works well, and that's how we're planning to do it.
Oh, that's pretty exciting. That's pretty exciting to see something that is so, back end. And a lot of the time it's like, okay, it works. As long as it works, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Sure.
Type of approach. So it's pretty impressive that you coming in with that type of product and really changing it so quickly. What is one of, the projects that's coming up that you're super excited about?
From a product standpoint,
Whatever you want to share. Like
sure.
what's something right now that's like you're super excited about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say more from a customer standpoint. I can't reveal the names just yet, but there's two big customers that we're working with that have really, really exciting requirements that will be end consumer facing. So the type of companies that you and I might be customers of, and we're working very closely with them to implement a few features in the product that will enable them to really adopt us and be successful. And I'm just really excited to see those through. Not only are they going to be good business opportunities for us, but it'll be the type of situation where, I could be walking in the streets and be like, hey, like these people, when customers use their product, they're using ours, without realizing it, which I think is a pretty exciting prospect.
And I'm sure that also is going to help make your product even better.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a good partnership with those folks.
So we should check periodically your LinkedIn and wait for the announcement.
Yeah, you look, follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn, and you'll hear about it for sure once it goes live.
Okay, no, that's pretty crazy. And so, one of the things that's hard in your type of business is, grow a growing business like this is how do you foster positive and productive team culture? Because software, I don't know if you are in an office or if everybody's working remotely, but how do you manage to get everybody on board and, okay, you need to push, we need to push, we need to get going.
It's a great question. We are primarily remote. I will say we're a very small team. We're only 4 people at the company, despite servicing these bigger customers. So it's a little bit of an easier task for us. My answer is going to be a bit uncommon, perhaps, but I really believe the two main ways to get a team to be really excited and successful is to um, be very intentional about who you hire, right? Hire people who are actually interested in what you do, right? People that are just looking for a job, especially when you're early on, right? We hire people who are deeply passionate about Postgres and about search and so on. We have in the past hired employees who were just like interested in software in the larger sense, right? But not particularly interested in the software that we make. And you can tell these people are just not as into it. The second thing I would say is the most exciting thing for any company is growth, right? You can do all you want trying to make team culture, make merch or create events and so on. But what gets people fired up is when a customer comes and you see their eyes light up because they see your product and they're like, oh my God, I need it, right? And so working to bring more customers, to get, everyone in the company interacting with them, when you have your colleagues be on the customer calls as well, they can tell the urgency. They can tell when things are broken. No one wants to meet a customer and have them complain that things are not working. You can tell when they're excited about it. And I really believe that's the greatest motivation for anyone. All of our best employees, they'll see a customer and the customer will be like, I'm so excited to use it, but this one thing. And then 2 hours later, the one thing is fixed because they were like, drop what they're doing and
Really?
let's just make sure they can do that, right? Um, I think that creates the best team culture. Like everyone feels part of steering the ship.
Well, no, it sounds exciting just hearing you talking about it. Uh, and what is your favorite app or tool that you use daily? But when I say daily, is maybe a little too much.
What kind of app or tool
Whatever you feel like you use daily that you cannot live without.
for work?
For work, personal life, just pick one that you really like. It would be really a problem if you didn't have it.
Sure, sure. Uh, I mean, for I'll say iMessage. For both for work and personal life. Work is all about relationships, and we try to have close relationships with all of our customers. So that's a big one. I text my investors, I text my friends, and I also try to text my customers
Oh, really? Even the customers, they have your cell phone number
as
for
much as
now?
possible, as much as
Wow,
possible. Yeah.
that's pretty brave.
Hey, we want to make people feel like they're in good hands.
You cannot do better than that. The founder's cell phone, that's pretty good. I know that there is a company called Odoo. It's a ERP. So it started as an open source ERP, and I think it's still open source. Is the most famous and known ERP
Mhm.
because they have, I think, like 12 million users now, or something like that.
Whoa.
And yeah. And it's valued at like 3 billion now. And I know about this company for 5 years now because I used them on my other business. And I reached out to LinkedIn to the CEO of the company and the CEO of the US. And to this day, if I have a real problem and I send them a message in LinkedIn, they will respond to me. That is
Hmm.
like pretty impressive.
Hmm.
So, I hope you're gonna get to that level, and then, we'll still message. But I'm super amazed that those guys, they have, I don't know how many thousands of employees now, and like if you message them on LinkedIn, they'll get back to you. And it's
I
them. I know it's them.
Yeah, I believe they're doing it right. The I've never heard of any successful person complain that he spent too long interacting with their customers. No business has failed due to being too in touch with your customers.
That I cannot I cannot say that I don't agree with that. All right, cool. And then one of the last question that I love to ask is, what are you excited in the world of digital marketing and what are you worried about?
Good question. I am excited and worried about the same thing. I'm very excited about these de-anonymization tools that are popping up everywhere now. There's many tools that allow you to figure out like who's looking at your website and things like that. So for example, we use documentation. We have documentation for our product, right? There are tools that can say like, hey, someone from company A has spent like 3 minutes looking at your website at this page, right? And obviously that's very useful because then I can say, okay, let's say I see like 4 or 5 engineers all from the same company. It doesn't tell you who they are personally, right? But it just tells you like where they work and how long they spend on your website. So
And
I can
through
say,
the
okay,
maybe the IP address, and they do like a
yeah,
localization of the IP address and then match that with a database of, what is the IP address related to.
Correct, correct. Yeah, I believe that's how it works. And so that's really exciting because if I have, four or five different people from some company looking at different parts of the product, I can have a pretty good idea of whether they're serious about using it, right? And I can proactively reach out and say, hey, notice, a few people from your company looking at the product. Let's get on a call, make sure we can help you. And on the one end, that's really useful. On the other end, I do think some amount of anonymity and privacy online is very important. And obviously, these don't go up to the person level, which is a good thing. But I question, where things are going in the future for that. So we'll see. I guess
No,
that's
and
not really my battle to fight, but
it's interesting that you're saying that because at the same time, you look at companies like Apple where they try to really fight that.
mm,
Remember iOS and Facebook. That was
yeah,
a big thing. However, it's going to be always a cat and mouse game, and then at the end of the day, unfortunately, I think that is going to be a lost battle because in anything online, the point is to get the data. And look at you, you're working in in the data as well, more data organization. But you know how it is. But
yeah, we
I
don't.
agree with you that it's can be a little stressful. And then even with the cookie policies now, what companies are doing is just blocking the access. If you don't accept the cookies, then you don't come on the website. And if you want the if you want the website for free, you need to let me know who you are.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I do think, some amount of something like that is not bad. Like if you can't tell who they are, but just which company, most people would be open to that. I don't think it's, too bad, but as long as it doesn't go too crazy.
For
But yeah,
sure.
I don't know. It's like a double-edged sword of the digital marketing world, right?
And so, since you said you're worried and excited about it and you're using it, what tool are you using? What is that tool that you're using, for example?
There's a few ones. The one that I use now is called Koala.
Okay. And so you're happy with it.
I'm very new to using it, frankly, but it's been one of the better ones that I've seen. There's another one called Penguin that I've heard of that's made by some friends really that I think is quite good. That I've been using as well, and there's a few others.
Well, yeah, we'll put the link in the description of the podcast. But no, Philippe, I'm very impressed with what you've done so far. I'm very excited, even though it's not my world, the databases. I'm excited because I understand that it's really the backbone of everything, and the also how the user experience is going to get improved, and efficiency and all of this. So I'm really looking forward to seeing ParadeDB, kind of everywhere, and people showcasing now on ParadeDB, instead of Elasticsearch. So it's pretty exciting. I really do wish you all the best, and maybe we'll have you in a year from now, and talk about now that you have a sales team of 50 people and something like that. But yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to follow your company.
I appreciate the kind words. Thank you for having me, and we'll try our best to make it big, and looking forward to stay in touch in the meantime.
Super. Have a good day, Philippe.
Cheers.